Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining tonight's webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of land that we are all dialing in from. I'd also like to pay my respect to elders past and present. I'd also like to thank Super Cheap Auto for presenting tonight's webinar. This is our last webinar for the year, and what a fantastic year it's been. For those who've been dialing into these virtual events, we hope you've been enjoying them and learning plenty from those in the industry. If there are any specific topics that you'd like for us to cover next year, shoot us an email, goalsontrack@motorsport.org.au, and we will try and deliver. If you have any questions for Jess, please shoot them through the Q&A chat. Unfortunately, Shannon is unwell, so here with Jess and I. Jess,
sorry, it's only me.
How are you, Jess?
I am good, thank you. I had to rush back from work through the traffic to get here in time, but made it, and we got through our technical dramas. So that's also a very good thing. Thank goodness for your idea of dialing in 10 minutes early, because we needed that 10 minutes and some.
Yes, it's always a good thing to do. Did you enjoy Perth? That was a good long day.
Yeah, no, Perth was fantastic. I was on ground for 23 and a half hours, but it was definitely worth the 11 hours or something I spent in the air. But no, it was really good. The morning in particular was a very good event. The girls who took part from the schools were very engaged, asked some fantastic questions, and we had a nice mix of girls who were motorsport nuts and girls who had no clue about motorsport whatsoever, but I think everybody left the day feeling inspired.
Yeah, that's our mission: inspire, connect, and empower. So tick, tick, tick. Before we jump into the Q&A session with you and me, basically, can I ask you to quickly introduce yourself? So you do a number of things in the motorsport industry. So what is your current role? That's wrong. What are your current roles in motorsport?
So many roles. So yeah, my name is Jess Dane. Hopefully you know that if you're dialing in. If not, you're probably thinking, who is this randomer? I was here for Shannon. But yeah, I am co-owner of 888 Race Engineering, and I host the Australian Rally Championship for Channel 7, or for Motorsport Australia and Channel 7. And I'm a very proud FIA Girls on Track Ambassador, and I am the Australian delegate to the FIA Women in Motorsport Commission. And apparently I'm also deputy head of our Asia Pacific region, but nothing really happens there. It's just a title, and I haven't done anything for it yet.
Well, that's a lot on your plate. So obviously you're extremely passionate about motorsport and all the different, I guess, disciplines of it as well, since you have your hands in them. Why or what made you decide to pursue a career in the motorsport industry?
Well, I grew up around race cars. I grew up at racetracks because my father founded 888 Race Engineering in the UK in the early 90s. And he used to race before that, not very well, but he tried. And luckily discovered that he's much better at management and ownership than he is at driving. So I spent a lot of my childhood at racetracks, and lost touch with it a bit when my father moved to Australia in the early 2000s, but refound my love of motorsport and a new love for supercars in 2007 when I went to my first supercars race, which was in Bahrain. And although in the first race, back then the qualifying sessions were split into similar to Formula One, where you have to get through Q1 in order to progress. We didn't get out of Q1, so we started almost at the back, and then both cars DNF'd on the first lap. So it was a really, really crap weekend from that perspective, although Craig Lowndes did go on to win race 3, which was very good. Back then it was progressive grids, but the whole atmosphere, the smell, the sound, the people, I was hooked. I absolutely loved it. And that's a lot saying that the atmosphere hooked me, because in Bahrain there's about as much atmosphere as there is on Mars. Like there was no atmosphere in Bahrain, but just being in the garage, being up close to that machinery and the people, for me it's all about, I'm not necessarily a people person, but it's about the people's collective desire to cross that finish line first that really keeps me motivated to to keep going out there and trying to win. I can't remember if I answered your question.
Not competitive at all, are we?
No. Well, as I said to you the other day, I really like winning. So I don't think I could ever completely work in the sport with no competitive tie, but which is why I love the team side of things so much. But yeah, for sure, if you're competitive, then Teamland is the perfect place to be.
Perfect. Now, what year did you actually start at AAA?
2008. I came over on my gap year, had just turned 18. Literally 2 weeks after my 18th birthday, I was on a plane to come out and work as a sub-assembly mechanic. So I was doing that for maybe 6 months and no mechanical background whatsoever. My dad threw me into that thinking that it would be a great way to like take me down a peg because he thought I was some cocky teenager. But I had actually really wanted, I knew I was coming to Triple Eight, and I had actually really wanted to be a mechanic, to work as a mechanic on the workshop floor. And so when he suggested it to me, or didn't suggest, told me this is what you're doing, I was really excited and I loved it. I'm not very mechanically minded or technically minded, so I wish looking back I had taken that opportunity to understand how it all works better. You know, I learned how like the brakes are put together. Or one of my most regular jobs was pulling apart and cleaning and rebuilding brakes. So I learned how that structure all came together, but then I never explored that further and took the opportunity to fully understand how cars actually work, which I wish I had at the time when I was at the coalface of it. But yeah, that was 2008.
So that's almost a decade, or a little over a decade. So obviously you have a wealth of knowledge in a race team, just like Shannon does. Unfortunately, she's not here. And I've heard you too, when you explain your role, you simply put, you say you do everything other than making the car go faster, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, back in the day, I could have said that I helped the cars go faster by building a good set of brakes or putting together a good gearbox, but I can't do that anymore. So yeah, that's a good way of summing it up, is saying Shannon and I both kind of get the pieces of the puzzle together behind the scenes to help everything along that doesn't directly involve working on the cars. The only thing that I don't really do in that area is accounts, because I can barely add 2 and 2 together. So accounts are not my forte, but anything else that I've been able to do over the years, I try and get involved with. So that includes PR and media manager, commercial, like partnerships executive, that kind of role, team coordinator, even catering. Like I still do catering at the racetrack when I'm not on Super 2 duties. So yeah, a bit of everything. But this year I have had the opportunity to actually have more involvement in the actual kind of performance side of things. And I don't know if Erebus, which is Shannon's team, I don't know if Erebus approached it in the same way, but we have kind of performance and non-performance. And obviously the performance side of things is much bigger, but than the non-performance, which is the areas that I've just touched upon. But being Super 2 team manager this year has been my first real opportunity to get stuck into the performance side of things, which has been a really big learning curve, but it's been fantastic at the same time.
So for those who are dialing in, you spoke about performance and non-performance, and your role focusing more on non-performance. So that's commercial, logistics, comms, except sponsorship potentially as well. Can you talk to each of those points a little more, so for someone who doesn't know what each of those entail, just a bit more description, I guess?
Yeah, each of those non-performance areas. Yeah, so where did we start? So my first role after being actually I should go back to while I was also team in sub-assembly on race weekends, I was also working in our merchandise. So that's another side of it as well. So back then we had our merchandise in-house and we did it ourselves at Triple Eight. But since we've been a Holden team, it's then been outsourced, because back in the day when we became Holden, they had a company that looked after kind of all the Holden teams, and it makes sense to go with them. But back then in 2008, 2009, we used to look after our own merchandise. So that was probably my first non-performance role, alongside also having a performance role as a sub-assembly mechanic. So there's merchandise, which some teams still look after in-house, which of course involves the design and the retail of merchandise, both online and at the track, and or in other retail outlets as well. So for us, you can buy our merchandise in Super Cheap Auto. And then PR and media manager, fairly self-explanatory, but that role has become a lot more complex in what's involved since I did it. So back then, because social media and digital was really still fairly emerging back in 2012, 2013, it was still a fairly new thing, and it wasn't the money maker that it is now, when you couldn't kind of attract a sponsor based on your social media likes, whereas you can now. It was kind of all lumped into one. So for a long time, we expected the media manager to be able to liaise with the media, organise media commitments for the drivers and team, write press releases, look after growing media coverage for the team and securing that media coverage, which can often be a fight as soon as you go mainstream. Yeah. Because we're not the biggest mainstream sport, football always beats us, unfortunately. And then also, that digital side of things. But now we look far more as those as separate skills. So for instance, at the moment, we've got a media manager and an agency that looks after our digital stuff. So the agency still reports to Mitch, our media manager, but this agency still kind of executes the strategies and actually delivers the content. At the moment, we're recruiting for, and some of you tuning in may have seen this job or even applied for this job, the digital coordinator role. So we need somebody in-house who can be constantly creating that content and thinking outside the box in terms of what's the next thing that we need to be jumping on. How do we keep growing our digital platforms? So yeah, those roles have changed a lot in the 10 years since I first did that role. And then there's team coordinator. So team coordinator, and sometimes also called race team secretary or something similar, is very much seen as the mum of the team. And ironically, we've actually just hired a male to take over that role, because some of you may know Charisse. She's our fabulous team coordinator, absolute guru. She's leaving at the end of the year because she has some other opportunities in like category management and stuff. So not going out of motorsport. She's still around. So if any of you want to get in touch with her, she's still around, and certainly still a Girls on Track champion. But team coordinator involves organising basically the race teams. Doesn't really do too much on the kind of non-race team side of things. It's mainly race team. So for us, because we've got not only supercars but also Super 2, GT in Australia and GT in Asia, it's a massive job. But so for Adelaide, for instance, we've got Supercars, Super 2 and GT Australia all running 2 cars each, plus Gen 3 demo laps. So that's all going on at Adelaide. She has to coordinate all the personnel to get to that event and attend that event. And that includes everything from doing all the paperwork leading into it, like orders and making sure kit is stocked and all that kind of thing. Sorry?
Catering, I suppose, as well?
Catering?
Yeah.
No, we were taking a chef. We do take a chef to the big rounds, thankfully. Yeah. But no, when it's the smaller rounds, Charisse and I are on catering. But for the big rounds, when we've got multiple categories, it's, thankfully we take a chef to that, because that's a lot of people to feed. So Charisse will organise the flights and accommodation, hire cars, write the schedule. Like when we go racing, our little schedule is like our Bible. We live by it. So that's anything that anybody needs over a race weekend, they tend to go to Charisse. So if you're happy being that person who everybody goes to and everybody needs to be highly organised, then you'll make a fabulous team coordinator. Next on the list, and please stop me if I'm rambling, Pri. Next on the list was sponsorship executive, and that, of course, involves keeping the sponsors happy. So for us, our commercial manager or commercial director looks after sponsorship acquisition, so bringing in new sponsors, whereas the sponsorship executive is not so much involved in acquisition, apart from the writing of sponsorship proposals. So the commercial director will meet with a new sponsor, say, what do you want to achieve from the partnership? Report back to the commercial executive with, okay, this is what they want, let's shape a proposal to that person. And then they'll put together the proposal, and then the commercial director will keep those conversations going. And fingers crossed, at the end of it, you come out with a sponsor. But there's a lot of no's. There's a lot of no's in sponsorship. Even for the most successful team in pit lane, there's still a lot of no's. And then once the sponsor is signed up, it's then the sponsorship executive's job to keep those sponsors happy. So that can be everything from coordinating massive shoots. So our sponsorship manager, Cyan, she's been coordinating the drivers for a super cheap auto shoot that's been happening for the last few days. And that's been a massive job, making sure that the right people are in the right place at the right time. And but then it's things like right down to organising ticketing. So organising tickets for sponsors to events, and organising uniforms. I shouldn't brush that off as a small job. It's a massive job. Uniforms are an exceptionally important part of what we do, and very, it takes a lot of work, but you can't go to the track if you don't have a uniform. So that's sponsorship executive. Oh God, I feel like I've been talking for ages and just reeling off all of the jobs that I just mentioned.
Yeah, we'll get into the organizational chart. So anything you missed, we'll cover there. Apart from winning, what is your favorite part of being in the motorsport industry?
Winning. No,
winning.
I love sport. I think if I wasn't doing motorsport, I would be in sport in some description. But it's also the people. As I touched upon earlier, it's that collective desire to work as hard as everyone else, work as a team, because although we see one driver on track, the teamwork involved is just massive. And it's interesting trying to explain that to somebody who doesn't know much about motorsport. I'm sure everybody dialing in knows enough about motorsport that it is very evident that there are an awful lot of people behind the scenes. You already know that, I don't need to tell you that. But getting people into the garage who have no idea what goes on in a motorsport team, they so often say, so what do you guys do like in between rounds? Is this just your part-time job? I'm like, oh my God, I wish motorsport was a part-time job, then I might have time for a life. No, it's a massive team effort. And I love that team effort, because when the highs are really high and the lows are really low, but when you can turn those lows into a high, which is something that we've been really good at over the years, and bouncing back from them, that's when it feels the best to be part of a team. You know, we've had some of our biggest parties. Hamilton 2008, Jamie's car didn't even start a race. It got wiped out in practice, and that was one of our biggest after parties. Had a shocking weekend, and that was one of our biggest after parties, because that's how you gel as a team, like getting it through those times.
Yeah, it's obviously a lot of time spent away from home, but obviously really exciting as well. Long hours at the racetrack, sometimes 5 a.m. to maybe 11 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of misconceptions that we get with some of the girls coming to our events, that it's all very glamorous, including Formula One. So give us an insight into the reality of what it's like working for a supercars team and traveling and putting in those long hours.
Yeah, if you've ever watched a film about motorsport, like be it Rush or even Drive to Survive, it's not like that. Motorsport isn't glamorous. It's a hell of a lot of fun. It's definitely fun, definitely exciting, and hard work, but rewarding hard work when it goes to plan. But yeah, definitely not as glamorous as it can seem. I'm sure if you're in a corporate suite at Gold Coast, then it is glamorous. But, you know, if you're working in motorsport, chances are you won't be in a corporate suite at Gold Coast. You'll be on the workshop, or you'll be on the garage floor in amongst the action. And you've got to want that. You've got to want to be involved and be in the mix, and want to chip in when times get tough. You know, I remember, I think back to Adelaide 2018, Jamie, and of course in Adelaide, because it's a 4-day event, you qualify on the Friday. So Adelaide 2018, Jamie crashed in qualifying. It was the first year of the ZB Commodore, so first qualifying session with this brand new car, and yeah, sends it into the wall at turn 8. And if any of you seen Adelaide, turn 8 is one of the fastest corners in the whole of motorsport, with concrete walls either side of you, so you don't get out of there lightly if you have a shunt there. We were there until 4 in the morning, and although I couldn't help work on the cars or anything, it was like we were there making coffees for people, doing 2 a.m. KFC runs, just enough to keep people motivated. And then when the race came, and I think it was either 97 or 88 had, or car one as it was in 2018, had another almighty shunt, and we had exactly the same thing again. You think, oh my God, is this really happening? But yes, it is happening. And that's again when you've got to dig deep, and you're in it as a team. And sometimes you do have to wave the white flag and say, okay, well, it's not beneficial for the commercial team to still be here at midnight. But if we can help, if we can be useful in some way, whether it's making coffees or getting chips or whatever, or even cleaning the car when it's coming back together, then yeah, then you have to be willing to overcome that, or put aside that idea that it's glamorous, and just get stuck in and help. Because, and I've said this multiple times, nobody in motorsport really cares what gender you are, as long as you're willing to get stuck in and work as hard as the person next to you. Certainly at Triple Eight. I mean, I can't talk for other teams, I can't talk for other organizations and other areas of work in motorsport, but certainly at Triple Eight, you work hard, you'll find your feet and you'll be welcomed into the team.
I remember after our Grand Prix event this year, you sent us a picture of you stitching some kind of label or something.
Oh my God, those bloody suits. Yeah. So apparently I'm like the only person on the team who can sew. Like, I was brought up with it being a fairly normal life skill, but no one else can sew, it seems. So every time a patch needs sewing, then I'm the one who has to do it. And for this specific one that you're talking about, we had new super cheap auto suits. So I think either it was when the logo changed, or no, that was it. OMP managed to do all of the logos with the auto written in the wrong place. I don't know how you get that wrong, but they did. Yeah. Especially when they did the test suits correctly, and then all 10 pit crew suits and 8 driver suits came out wrong, and I had to sew the patches onto each one. And when it's like a category patch, I can do category patches in a matter of minutes, because they're rectangle, and you just slap them on and you just stitch up the corners and do a few stitches in the middle if you need to, unless you want it to be, you're doing a 12-hour or something and you need it to be well stitched. But no, these super cheap auto logos, it was painstaking. Each one took me a good couple of hours. And now I have, currently in my car, we've got a Super 2 test day tomorrow. I have Brock's cool suit to stitch back up, because he managed to rip that. And also on my drying rack downstairs at my own house is Declan Fraser's race kit that's been in a suitcase for a week. So I had to wash that and bring it home to dry. Yeah,
but there we go. Like, it's not motorsport. I think any role you take on, you're not actually just doing what's in your position description. There's so much more that you just have to get involved in to make it work. And everyone that I've met in the motorsport industry is just extremely passionate about what we do. So you never hear anyone complaining, which is just fantastic, because it's tiring, it's long. I'm complaining right now. But it's just such a great atmosphere, great people, and whoever's dialing in, you're obviously very passionate about this industry too. So hopefully, you'll be amongst us soon. Taking a bit of a pivot now, you also work in HR.
Yes, I do.
So last week we had Todd and Katie from the Formula One Williams team talk to us about resume writing. Now, you come across hundreds, thousands of resumes for various roles at Triple Eight hiring for. And for someone applying for a entry mid-level role, what are some of the key things that you look for that kind of get your sign of approval for the next stage of the recruitment process?
Make sure you've got a cover letter. The number of CVs that I probably won't even look at if you haven't taken the time to write a cover letter. I save a lot of time, because I think if you haven't gone through the effort of writing a cover letter, I'm not going to give you my time in reading your CV. Because it takes me a hell of a lot of time to wade through the few hundred CVs that we get. Well, it depends how many roles we've got advertised, of course. But yeah, I've have a collection of CVs sitting in my inbox at any one time, and guaranteed that if you've got a cover letter, then I will look at it. As soon as you send me something that doesn't have a cover letter, if I'm in a rush, then I probably won't look at it if you haven't given me a cover letter. But 9 times out of 10 I will. But just take the time. Like, if you're applying for any job, this isn't only motorsport, if you're applying for any job, take the time to write a cover letter, take the time to tailor it to who you're writing to. Don't always write, I've applied for this job at your company. Like, it's not hard to do at 888 Race Engineering. It's not hard to personalize it. That's the most important thing. Secondly, make sure that if you're writing about your attention to detail and that kind of thing, that it's actually correct. The number of people who tell me that they've got excellent attention to detail but have put the wrong job title in the CV or cover letter is mind-blowing. One of the things that is very important if we're talking jobs not involving like the performance side, if we're talking media, marketing, sponsorship, those areas, if you can make your CV reflect the skills that you've got, then amazing. So we've got, I'd be interested to know if Taylor's on this call, actually. I don't know. How do I see that? I found it.
Some participants.
Taylor Byrne, yes, you are on this call. Wonderful. Sorry to single you out, but I believe my colleagues have been in touch with you because your CV was fabulous. You applied for the digital coordinator job and you showed in your CV the skills that you have by including QR codes to your references and your examples of work, and you showed what you can do with kind of layouts and stuff like that, and it was just a really good, concise but well laid out CV. And straight away yours was the only one that our media manager Mitch actually replied to me about and was like, right, we need to get Taylor in. So yeah, that was fantastic. I hope the interview went well. I think you had an interview and I hope that went well. But that was a fantastic CV, so very well done. Keep it short. Sometimes I get CVs from like 6-page CVs, sometimes 8-page CVs, and it's quite unnecessary because you can put all of that on 2 pages. A CV should not be more than 2 pages. It doesn't matter if you're bloody Elon Musk, your CV should not be over 2 pages, although I'm sure he doesn't have a CV. It's really important to get that skill of keeping it concise. Also, and a lot of you are probably fairly early in your careers and your work-life journeys, but I really don't need to know that you worked at McDonald's when you're 15 years old if you're applying for a role as a fabricator and you're 45 years old. Not relevant. But good to know. Good for you, but don't need to know that. Think about it. It's so important to tailor it. I remember when we were hiring a media manager in 2015, she actually replaced me when I went off and spent 6 months working in TV production somewhere else, different story. But she replaced me, and straight away I knew she was going to get the job because her cover letter was, she had used the Red Bull Racing Australia, as it was back then. She'd used the Red Bull Racing Australia logo in her cover letter and really tailored it to us because she wanted that job so much. So that's the kind of thing you've got to do to get noticed. Go above and beyond in tailoring your CV and cover letter to the person who you're applying for. And yeah, it's time consuming, but it's bloody time consuming going through CVs. So show some respect to the person who's filtering through all of them.
No, 100%. And we had this conversation a while ago about volunteering and, getting into teams. So if you want to be an engineer, go out there, even if it's a grassroots club, and give them your time. And that's how you build your CV up. And you said, yep, that's definitely something you look at as well, correct? Putting yourself out there and showing that.
Totally. Yeah. Building connections, not being scared to go out and have conversations, and yeah, knocking on doors in person, and being able to say in your CV or cover letter, being able to say that I met this person at this place, and they recommended this job, or just something. Even it doesn't even need to be true, but just something to say that you've gone that extra mile to show that you're committed.
And I think sometimes a lot of
scrap that bit about not being true. It should definitely be true.
That's not a good idea. Sometimes the participants that I've met are like, I want to work in a supercars team. I need to go and get my work experience or internship or whatever at a supercars team. But there are so many teams at a state level, and it doesn't have to be circuit. There's rally, there's off-road, there's drift, there's speedway. There's just so many opportunities out there. So I guess it's like you said, it's putting yourself out there, not being afraid to ask for those opportunities. And sometimes you'll get knocked back. I mean, that's happened to everyone, right? You fall down 7 times, you get up 8. On that happy note, what advice do you have for those who want to follow in your footsteps, or potentially even work for your team or the team in supercars? Just probably summarize what we just discussed.
Yeah, I think I want to go back to your point about there are so many opportunities in supercars. Not in supercars, in motorsport. It's not only supercars. Yes, it's what you see on TV, and yes, that may be what you aspire to, but it's so broad. And that's one of the amazing things about our sport, is that there are so many different levels. And sure, there are plenty of positions where you can't get paid because it might be helping somebody with their Excel, or it's just you manage to get some weekend work with an 86 team or something like that. But all of that counts on a CV, and showing that you're willing to get out there and chip in with those other categories, and showing that you know about motorsport, because there are so many people who only know supercars, and I'm guilty of that. Like, for a long time I only knew about supercars. I was only involved in supercars. And one of the best things that I've done is expand my knowledge of motorsport and get more involved in grassroots, because the connections you make are just amazing, and the people you meet, and it's like its own little family, or big family.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an excellent point. But yeah, if you want to follow in footsteps and work in motorsport, takes a thick skin. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and that doesn't matter what your background is, or what gender you are, or what nationality you are, or anything like that. It doesn't matter. You have to have a thick skin to work in any competitive industry. And while it may look like you're only competing on track in motorsport, you're competing to get a job, really. So you've got to have thick skin, but also you need to have perseverance. As you said, like, don't take the first knock as a sign that it's not for you. Keep trying, and offer your services everywhere, not only in supercars, because if you get knocked down the first time, it's probably because there's somebody who's better suited for the role. So have a think about, how can I be the best person for that role? How can I make it so that they can't say no to me? And also, if you ever want feedback on, if you've applied for something and you unfortunately haven't got it, ask for feedback. Like, don't be afraid to get in touch, because that also shows initiative. Like, if anybody got in touch with me after they haven't landed one of these roles, I'd be more than happy to have a chat with the hiring manager and get some feedback for you, because again, that shows initiative. And if we have something else coming up, I'll go, oh, that person might be perfect this time.
Yeah, and that's a way you'll also remember them, right? Because they've written back in. taking that initiative. Great advice. I hope everyone has a pen and is taking down notes.
So I do speak quickly as well, so it's probably not the easiest to try and follow.
That's all right. It's recorded, so you can watch it again. Let's jump into the organizational chart. So I'm going to just pop up. Are you able to see this, Jess?
Yeah, I've got it on my laptop screen as well.
Oh, perfect. All right, so you've gone through some of this. The commercial you've covered. I guess engineering, manufacturing, customer service, maybe touch on finance, and then the workshop. So if you could just explain how each of these departments contribute to the overall success of your team, and what some of the roles are. I know there's probably plenty that fall under, but just highlight maybe some of the roles, like for engineering, maybe like what Romy does. I don't know anyone else in the other roles, so I'll hand over to you.
Romy's the only person you need to know. So yeah, starting with engineering, or actually let's start at the top with senior management. So, and I'm only going to be talking in terms of AAA in this instance, because it's the only team that, no other team is going to let me see their org chart, funnily enough. So yeah, we're only talking in terms of AAA, and bear in mind that not all teams are as big as us. We are primarily an engineering company, so we do have we have a purpose-built manufacturing facility that's in a totally separate building. So we manufacture for not only ourselves, but we also have customers like Qantas. So yeah, we are quite big. 60 employees at the moment, which is the biggest we've ever been, and counting. So senior management is made up of managing director, team manager, workshop manager, financial director or CFO, commercial director, customer service manager, director, I don't really know what his title is, advanced manufacturing manager, technical director, and me. Who manages all the stuff that doesn't sit within that. So that gives a broad overview, and of course each of those people manages one of these aspects on the org chart that you're seeing. So engineering, we've got probably around 13 engineers at the moment, I think. And that covers everything from the race engineers, who are the ones you see on TV, to data engineers, systems engineers. We used to have an aerodynamicist, but that was mainly when we were developing the ZB Commodore. Who else? We've got we've got a lot of design engineers at the moment because of the emphasis on the Gen 3 car build and car design. A few youngsters straight out of uni, which is good. Show them the 888 way and train them up. So that's engineering. Romy she's primarily a data engineer, but she came to us really as a data engineer, and from that she's grown into a race engineer. You'd have seen that she was engineering the wildcard at Bathurst, and she also race engineers one or two of the GT cars on our program. So Romy sits within that. And then manufacturing, as I mentioned, we have our own manufacturing facility down the road that looks after obviously all of the motorsport stuff. Every team in pit lane, in Supercars pit lane, has to buy at least one part off us. And with Gen 3, that will increase because there's a higher number of control parts, and we will be making a number of those control parts. So manufacturing is a massively important aspect of what we do. We have a very nice facility, so if anybody wants to be a machinist or a fabricator, come to us because it's the place to be. There's how many people do we have at 73 at the moment? Maybe about 15 to 20 people at 73. And within that manufacturing, so what we have on this org chart is a fairly basic way of looking at it. So somewhere in between that, within that kind of manufacturing structure, we also have a production manager. He doesn't come from a motorsport background at all, so it's all very new to him. In fact, a lot of the manufacturing staff don't come from motorsport backgrounds, so we're showing them motorsport for the first time, which is very exciting. And it's very cool, you know, when they came to Gold Coast and got to see the cars up close on track for the first time. So fantastic bringing them into the fold. But machinists and fabricators are bloody hard to find. So if anybody wants a guaranteed job, that's and a well-paid job at that, that's what you should go into. Always need people with those skills. And of course, there's the manufacturing, advanced manufacturing manager. So he works with the production manager, the machine shop manager, and the fabrication manager to ensure that the workflows, the workloads are all on track. We're working closely with the other departments to make sure that everybody's getting what they need, as well as our customers are getting what they need, and making sure we've got enough material, making sure we've got the right equipment, and all the equipment that we do have is being kept at a very good standard. So yeah, manufacturing is a vital part of what we do. We've touched upon commercial, well, not touched upon, we've been through commercial in some depth already. Customer service is one that's fairly unique to us. I wouldn't expect many, if any, other teams have a specific customer service role like this. Not only do we look after other supercars teams and Super 2 teams and Super 3, we also are the kind of agents for AMG customer racing in Australia and New Zealand. So if you want to buy an AMG GT3 or GT4 or any of the parts that go on it, then you need to buy it through us, basically, because we race them on track. We've got a very good relationship with AMG, have a whole parts truck that travels to all the races with the AMG parts in it. So if anybody has a slight accident, then they come and see us, and our customer service representative helps them out and sorts the parts, and also looks after all of the portal ordering for them. So not that many people in that customer service department, but still, yeah, it's massively important part of what we do. So finance, yeah, there's accounting, which naturally everybody needs accountants, no matter what. Accounting would be great because you can literally get a job anywhere you want. Accounting is, we've got 3 accountants, all female, I might add. And one of them, our CFO, actually used to work for Ferrari and McLaren F1 back in the UK in the 80s. So she's got very good background. And then a couple of others. One of them is completely new to motorsport. She's the newest member. She only joined us a few months ago, but she's our financial controller. She came from the Catholic Church. So very different background to motorsport, but she's a gun. She's awesome. And then Jess is another Jess. She's our financial supervisor. And she actually came from, she used to be a promo girl, and so that's her back. She's been involved in motorsport for years. Used to be a promo girl, and is now our accountant. So very, yeah, it's good on her. Then HR, yeah, that sits under me. Still sits here on this org chart for some reason, I don't know why. Anyway, yeah, HR sits with me now. That's important, I suppose. Yeah. And then culinary. Not every team has their own kitchen at their workshop, so that might be quite unique to us. So we have a chef. We have a chef who is mainly workshop based, but comes with us to the big rounds, and everybody needs to be fed. And then we have the workshop, which is over page. So yeah, that's everything in a nutshell. I might have kind of gone over that too glazed over it. I don't know. Did that all make sense?
Yeah, I think you've gone through all of this. I think I spoke to you about someone who's interested in becoming a transporter. So maybe just touch upon what that is, and maybe just the warehouse management too, because I think you've covered everything else.
Yeah, so our trucks, we've got a few of them. Probably, again, more than most teams, because we've got lots of different categories and lots of different bits and pieces. So yeah, I loved that we had somebody who said that they wanted to be a truck driver. But the beauty of being a truck driver in supercars is that you're not only a truck driver. Our truckies are also our tyre technicians, which is a massively important job because the tyres are the only contact patch with the road, and you need to be able to get tyres right So it's a fairly skilled job. It's a very important job. Tires don't just kind of get stacked up and left until the next race. They're kept in climate controlled rooms. Everything is like batched and numbered. Everything has the number of kilometers it's done on it. It's very closely monitored and guarded. Tires are, because they're like gold. So that's the fabulous thing. There aren't any truckies in motorsport who are only truckies. Everybody does a bit of everything. And then warehouse management is, for us, we've probably got a bigger stores and purchasing department than most people, because we look after so many customers. So I think we've probably got 4 or 5 people in our stores and purchasing at the moment. We're in the process of digitizing everything and putting on an enterprise resource planning system, which we're very far behind. We should have done that a long time ago, but anyway, it's happening now. And that's all about stock and inventory and getting out orders, getting in orders, making sure that we're getting the right parts from the right place. Making sure that we've got everything we need, essentially.
Perfect.
Very good job for, like, some of the best stores people are actually women, because we're so organized. We're much more organized than men. So yeah.
Awesome. What we might do now is go into the questions that have come in from people watching tonight. So first one here is from Cass. I'm already heavily involved in motorsport, including supercars as a photographer. It's a part-time gig, but I'd love to move into a full-time role. Is it worth sharing your resume with local teams if there isn't a current role advertised?
Hey, Cass. To be honest, there are a lot of jobs that aren't advertised. Probably the more non-performance jobs are more likely to end up on websites like Seek. So, for example, we have been advertising that digital coordinator role and an office assistant role recently. Depends on what you do. Obviously, I know you're a photographer, but what's the rest of your skill set? I don't know of any teams that have a full-time photographer. Obviously, as you know, we have Mark, who's a contractor who contracts to everyone. It depends what else is within your skill set. But for sure, like, I'm sure that 9 times out of 10, when you send your CV to anyone, not only teams, but anyone, saying, I'm sending this to you just in case, they'll say, oh, we don't have anything suitable for you right now. But it's about that 10% chance that you'll be the right time. And 2, it's about hassling. It's about checking back, making sure you get the contact of that person and checking back. Because, for example, we had a fabricator for a long time called Grant, and he only left us because he moved back to New Zealand, but he was with us for a long time. And every time he got in touch, the first time he sent in a CV, our machine shop managers just said, no, we don't have anything for you. And he was like, great, well, I've got Craig's email address now and his phone number, so I'm just going to keep harassing him like every 4 to 6 months. And funnily enough, because when a job did come open, Grant was the first person that Craig thought of. And so that's how he got a job. Amazing.
All it takes is, keeping in touch and making yourself known.
I think Charlie Billis is the perfect example of that, to be honest.
There are a few, actually. Nadine tells the same story. Emma tells the same story. So, everyone's, had their fair share of hustling and volunteering and giving it a lot of time before they've got where they are. And it's a journey, right? You don't just become, you didn't just become who you are overnight. It took you a while to get there.
That 6 months that I did in TV production, I first met the person who got me that job in early 2014, and I finally got a job there in mid 2015. And I was only there for 6 months, but let's skip over that bit because I missed motorsport. I will point out that was why I left, because I came back to motorsport. But I just stayed in touch with her and kept asking, and eventually she was like, oh yeah, there's an opportunity that might turn into something. I'm not sure. I forwarded your CV onto my colleague Mark. And then before I knew it, they were asking me in for an interview and saying, we want to build this side of the company. Can you come and help us do it?
There you go. All right, next question. With a career in supercars, is it flexible with chronic illness? I know it's very full on and busy from listening to lots of podcasts and these webinars, but would you say it could work with someone who may need extra time to recover?
Depends what your role is. It depends what you want your role to be honest. I believe that there should be capacity for everyone. So if you're the right person for the job, then yeah, the employer should be making it work. But yes, I strongly believe that everyone should be given an opportunity, and it's not that you can't stop a race. So if you're expected to be at a race, the biggest factor that comes into my head is something that might be an issue is if you were to to become sick or something straight directly before a race. That race isn't going to stop. You can't just say, oh no, I can't, well, let's postpone it for a week. And it's the same with race cars. You can't just say the race car's not ready, we're just not going to go and do the race. Let's move the race. You have to be ready to go. So if you're expected to travel, if you're expected to be on ground at the time and you need to be reliable for that, that's a little bit that might make it a little bit tough. So yeah, it really depends on what role you're trying to go for.
Yeah, it's a good answer, because some people stay back while others travel on the road.
That's a good point, and something that we haven't really touched upon is the fact that not everyone travels. So to give you an idea, we have 25-ish people usually on the supercars team who travel to races. Yep. Super 2, we have 10 or 12 people who travel to races. GT is probably usually about 16 people who travel to races out of a whole team of 60 people. So that gives you an idea of the fact that just because you work in a motorsport team, you're not necessarily going to be traveling.
Yep, 100%. All right, next one. With regards to media marketing, PR, how would you best recommend someone to gain experience in these fields? Is there something somewhere we prioritize to make sure we're ready to take on larger roles in bigger categories such as supercars, Formula One, etc.? And thank you all for your time tonight.
Oh, thank you for attending. I think it comes back to what we were saying earlier about how broad motorsport is, because it's not only supercars. There's so much opportunity to get involved with, the TCR and speed series, for example. So say if you wanted to build up your CV creating digital content or writing press releases or something, you can offer to help a TCR team or an S5000 team, and social media, especially if you're trying to build up your skills with social media and digital marketing, then offering your skills in that area is for free, because you have to be willing. If you want to build up your CV, you have to be willing to work for free, and that isn't something that I've said yet tonight, but it's a fact of the world. When I was leaving uni after my first degree, we were told to expect to have to work for free, like not just get work experience, but our first job wouldn't be paid. So luckily, they don't expect slave labor out of everyone these days, because I did leave uni 10 years ago. Also in the UK, and fair work is a lot fairer in Australia than it is in UK. Yep. But yeah, you need to be offering your services for free. I remember Bathurst 2020, 2019, I can't remember. Somebody came up to me in the paddock with a USB with her details stuck onto it and said, this is like my portfolio kind of thing. And I just want you to take a look at it. And I'm sure you don't have a job for me right now, but please just have a look at it and give me your feedback. My details are on there. And I thought that was epic. Like having the initiative, I think she was only 18 or something, but having that initiative, I wish I could remember her name now. Having that initiative to do that kind of thing. But think about it in terms of, chances are if you're turning up at a supercars garage, they're not going to need help, because we already have all of that covered. All the big teams certainly will. That shouldn't stop you from thinking that you can go and help teams that are at the other end of pit lane. So the Premiers, the Matt Stone Racings, those kind of people who have fewer resources than we do at the pointy end of pit lane. And I don't mean to sound arrogant when I'm talking about ends of pit lane. It's just the truth. But yeah, Super 2 teams. Every supercars race that you go to has at least 4 support categories. So think about how you can, the connections you can make there. And chances are the people also working in those categories are either at the start of their career and love talking to people who are going through the same journey as they are, or they're towards the end of their career and would be happy to help people who are trying to get a start. You'd be surprised at how many people just want to help other people.
Yeah, it's all about asking. It's just getting over that initial fear, if you want to call it, and just putting yourself out there.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be scared to put yourself out there. Like, if we need to see examples of your work. If we're going to give you an opportunity, we need to see examples of the fact that you can write a press release, or put a reel together or whatever. Like, one of the things that another Taylor, who's I think also on this call, Taylor's blog is fantastic. You wanted to write and you're writing. You've got your own blog, and that's awesome. That's a perfect way of showing what you can do.
Oh, yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. The other thing is you could even go to tracks across the country who run or put on the motorsport events, right? So like Wanneroo Raceway, We Want Path. In Tassie, there's Simmons Plains and Baskerville. All of these tracks are managed by organizations, and they need people doing their social media and doing their press release, etc.
Yeah,
so not only
that's a very good point. Some categories, some venues, all of that, some of them are so under-resourced and would value somebody going in and lending a hand. So if you can send me a CV and say that you were doing Queensland Raceway's social media during the Speed Series in this year, then I'll be a massive tick, and I can get in touch with QR and say, how was this person? They'll probably say they were great, and then hopefully you've got a QR code or something, and I can scan that, and that will take me to examples of your work. Boom, full circle.
All right. Next question. Hi, Jess and Priyanka. I'm really enjoying the chat so far. That's wonderful. The team coordinator position is my dream role, but I wonder if you have assistant positions with the team that look after day-to-day running of the business also. Do each of your department managers have assistants? Or Jess, do you need an exec assistant?
Oh my days, I need an assistant for my life. We don't actually have assistants at Triple Eight. I know that there are plenty of other people who do have assistants. For example, I know that there are a few execs in supercars as an organization themselves who have executives who have assistants. But at Triple Eight, we don't. Having said that, we have just created a new role, office assistant. The applications have been open for a month, so I think they're closing soon. I should probably know that, seeing as I posted the job, so I think they do close this week. But yeah, that office assistant role is probably exactly what you're summing up. So that role will assist the team coordinator in things like booking flights and the things that, not only the team coordinator, but so many different areas of the team. So they'll help me with things like event coordination, like the planning the Christmas party and stuff like that, which seems to have taken up most of my day to day. But it's going to be awesome. And helping accounts with like inputting invoices and that kind of thing, helping out our team managers with their entry forms and tire orders and that kind of thing. So that role is going to be that would actually be such an interesting role, because it's going to be so varied, and it's not going to be attending races and things, but it is going to be such a varied role, and there's massive opportunity within that to grow into a different area of the business when you kind of have been there a few years and found out what you like and found out what you're good at.
That ties into one of the other questions. Once you're in a motorsport team, is it easy to move around into different roles within the team?
Really depends. Some roles don't have natural career progression because of the nature of the role. For example, team coordinator. I feel like I shouldn't be saying this, but I don't want to kind of change what's true. But team coordinator, you're probably not going to go from there into other areas of the team. But having said that, Kate Harrington, who's at Tickford, who, if any of you get a chance to speak to her, she's an absolute legend. Kate started at Tickford as team coordinator, and she's progressing through their ranks pretty quickly. She's their Super 2 team manager, and I think they've got big things in store for her. So having said that, certainly like our team coordinators haven't taken on any other roles within the business over the years, but apart from me. But yeah, Kate is an exception to that rule. There are other ones that do naturally lead towards career progression. So of course we're talking about mechanics who go from number 2 to number 1 mechanics to crew chief to, if our workshop manager started with us as a number 2 mechanic and he's been workshop manager for the last few years. So there's certainly on the workshop floor and in manufacturing and things, there's plenty of scope for progression. Within the commercial department, there's, if you were to start as like office assistant, your next role could be something within media or PR, and then sponsorship executive. And it kind of depends on when people leave also, and also when if anybody gets hit by a bus, like it could happen.
It also probably depends on asking and letting your manager know that that's where you want to go. So sometimes imposter syndrome with women or whatever it is, we hold back and we don't make it known that that's what you want. And sometimes that's all it takes, And if you don't ask again, you're never going to know.
Totally. Yeah. You have to, every good business should have at least an annual review. And that should be the prime opportunity to be able to talk about that stuff. And if a year is too far away, then have that conversation now. Don't be shy to talk to your manager or talk to somebody in the team who you trust and who can do something about it, to express the fact that you have big goals.
Yeah. Next one. Do you take on many apprentices or advertise many apprenticeship roles?
We've actually got like our first proper apprentice on at the moment. It's not something that we've ever... Oh, we did have one. There was one apprentice with me in sub-assembly when I was in sub-assembly back in 2008. But it looked a bit different. The TAFE landscape and apprenticeship landscape looked a bit different then. But currently we've got a fabrication... he's a fabricator who's also at TAFE at the same time. So he's going through that for the next 4 or 5 years, I think, that he's with us doing his apprenticeship. So yeah, it's all a bit new. I've been finding my feet with it, as Triple H has been finding our feet with it, and it's all been very new and a big learning curve, but definitely worthwhile, because it's great to see Braden out there enjoying it and progressing and learning new skills. And actually, when he went there and he was supposed to do his first 3 days there, and they said, well, you're already accomplished, you already know what you're doing, so you don't need to do this, go back to work. I would love to take on more.
Hopefully one day. Next one. What's the best way to present yourself when you're more of an all-rounder, don't have a specialized skill set? How can you detail everything on a CV cover letter?
I feel like I kind of fit into that box, but I haven't written a CV for a while. Actually, that's a lie. I did write one earlier this year for a board position with a legal centre, which I did not get. I don't know. I'm not sure I know the answer to that question, and I want to be honest about not knowing the answer to that question, because there's no point in me giving you advice that I don't necessarily know is correct. But the first thing that occurs to me is that you need to tailor your CV to the job that you're applying for. Yeah. So if you have experience in sponsorship and media and PR and team coordination, and you're applying for specifically a PR role, you need to highlight at the top of your CV that you have been a PR professional and make song and dance about that.
Correct. And then probably tie in the other roles into what's on the job description. So if there's certain skills that you haven't done in your PR role that maybe you've done in your other jobs, it's probably important to use those keywords and highlight those. Mm-hmm. Next one. What are you looking for in a cover letter? How long should it be?
Cover letter shouldn't be any more than an A4 page. As soon as it's over that, it's like you scroll and you're like, oh God. Your cover letter needs to not be your CV. A lot of people write cover letters and list what is in their CV. A cover letter needs to explain why you're the right person for that job, and in a nutshell, say, this is my relevant experience. You can read more about it in my CV. But it's your own self-advertisement. Your CV is going into the details of your experience, but your cover letter is your advertisement as to why you're the perfect person for that role. So yeah, tailor it to that role and be descriptive without being rambly. Good idea to throw in references. I know a lot of people say reference available upon request. Like, sometimes that's not the way we do things. Our workshop manager, before he interviews anyone, will call up a reference first. So yeah, he does it a little bit. He might have a phone interview with the person first and then call a reference, but more than often he calls a reference first.
Okay. Todd and Katie gave the complete opposite advice. It all comes down to who's. Yeah, they said not to put the references, but it all comes down to who's reading your CV, and I guess it comes down to the role as well.
Yeah, like if I was reading a CV or a cover letter rather, so that's what we're talking about at the moment, and somebody could say, slipped in at the last paragraph at I worked the Gold Coast 500 in the ticketing office with Casey Martin at Supercars, and she's and include her and say she'd be happy to have a chat with you. Perfect. Chances are, if you do that, I won't even need to chat to Casey.
Yeah, good point.
Interesting that they had totally opposite advice.
Yeah, I think everyone does. So it just comes down to doing, I guess, what you think is right. I don't know. Confusing. Next one. Do you have any advice for someone looking for a role in motorsport in Australia, but is currently based outside of Australia? Will this be a disadvantage?
Yeah, unless you're in New Zealand, which is very easy to get between. So yeah, to put it bluntly, it is tricky because the majority of motorsport teams aren't in a position to be able to bring someone over. And yeah, we do it very occasionally, but the people whose visas that we've sponsored over the last few years, we've kind of inherited from other teams. They've already been here. They were brought over with another team, and we've inherited their visa when they've left that team and come to us. Yeah, it's very competitive, and it's easier unless you've got very specialized skills, it's easier for any employer to choose somebody who's already in Australia for how straightforward it is, because trust me, it's not. If you need sponsorship and you need a visa, I'd be interested to know if you're coming from the perspective of needing a visa. It's from a sponsorship perspective, it's very hard and it's very expensive.
But if it was someone who's coming here on another visa and you weren't involved in that process at all, it would come down to skill set, right?
Oh yeah. If it doesn't involve sponsorship, and you're coming to Australia anyway, then yeah, totally. And you can there's no barrier to it.
Yeah, perfect. Because
obviously, we prefer to interview in person when possible, but sometimes that's not possible, and that's totally fine.
Romy came. What was Romy's story here?
Romy is one of I think she's probably the last visa that we did. So she came over in 2015, and we did sponsor her to come over. Yeah.
Okay.
I think she's the last person who we deliberately. I think we also sponsored Florian, who ironically she worked with at DTM. At DTM at HWA, Mercedes in Germany. They worked together, and then he also got sponsored by us to come over. He was our aerodynamicist, but then COVID hit, and we had to send him back home, which was very sad.
Next question from Tamika. Is it better to reach out to individuals who have the job that you are interested in, or the team as a whole? as I found some emails do not work. This is for general conversation shadowing.
Say that again, sorry, it broke up very slightly for me.
Is it better to reach out to individuals who have the job you are interested in or the team as a whole? As I have found some email supply do not work. This is for general conversation shadowing.
Yeah, always if you have a specific name and a specific email address, that's the best way to get in touch. Definitely, like the generic, I know that our team that look after our info email address are very good at forwarding on emails to me and relevant emails, because there are a lot of people who email us and they're just like, oh, can I have a job with you guys? And like no context, no CV, nothing. But if it's like a useful email, then they will always forward the email on to me. And if the person is genuinely asking a question and wants advice or wants some information, then I will always do my best to reply and give that information. But for sure, if you're reaching out, if you're kind of cold calling or cold emailing, then try and get somebody specific. But don't email the media manager saying, I want to be a media manager, how do I get your job? Because that's one way to rub someone up the wrong way. You have to get somebody who's very understanding and who doesn't feel like their job could ever be in jeopardy to get help from that person. So if you do want to be media manager, then find the hiring manager. Find that if you want to be media manager, talk to the commercial director about their advice on how to be media manager. And they might say, oh, I'm going to put you in touch with the media manager. But at least then you're not being that person who's like, I want your job.
You should keep that in here. Don't say it out loud.
Yeah, because people feel threatened. And I'm not saying that because people don't want to help. I'm saying it because people genuinely can feel threatened by people who come in and say, I want to take something that you've got.
Yeah, 100%.
Even if that's not how you mean it, because 99% chances that's not how you mean it. You just aspire to be that person one day. And I also think that's a far more masculine trait to feel threatened by something like that than it is a feminine trait, because we have, it's more in our nature to help people. Whereas I know that our media manager gets ticked off with people who say that.
What advice would you give someone coming into the industry? I was shadowing with a team in Adelaide on the management side and want to get the most out of it. How do you recommend getting over the nerves?
Oh, getting over nerves. Don't think you can just get over nerves. Like it's so normal to feel nervous for like what seems like a really small thing in any situation. And also it's so normal to feel imposter syndrome. Oh my God, I feel imposter syndrome every time I do anything to do with Super 2. And that's like half of my job. But the making the most of that time, like, great question, because that's awesome that you're already thinking about that. Make sure you're making contacts with people, getting those phone numbers, getting those email addresses, staying in touch with people, because that saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know, is not entirely true, but is massively true. Because as we've touched upon, it's about the contacts and connections and finding the people who want to help you, finding the person who goes, oh, I'm leaving my role and I met somebody who might be perfect to take that role. I wonder if she's still around. Giving that person, giving you a call, or vice versa. You've got something, you've just, finished uni, or you've just finished a contract or something, and you need to be able to have those connections to email or call or text that person and say, hey, just wondering if, I've just finished this. Can we have a quick call and see what's going on? And sometimes it's not so much saying, oh, I'm looking for a job. Sometimes it's just saying, can we just stay in touch? Can we catch up for a coffee, or catch up for a quick Zoom call for half an hour or something like that? Because I do feel like there are so many people who want to help others.
Correct. It's about finding.
Also, it's very it's flattering if you're that person who, if you're the person who somebody has come in and kind of found a connection with and looks up to and aspires to, it's flattering. And you, as the person who's flattering that person, should take advantage of
that. Would you take on volunteers to learn roles in your business? So if a job comes up, you may obtain a paid role in the future.
We definitely do that on the workshop floor. So we've got work experience people in on the workshop floor very often, most weeks, if not all weeks. And they do result in jobs. So for example, we had Gabby, who came to us for 2 weeks work experience. She was so bloody good that we just kept getting her back. She came to Bathurst, she came to Gold Coast, we take her to test days, and we've given her a job. Honestly, we think it's going to be in sub-assembly, but it could also be a number 2 mechanic. We don't know what it is, but please just come to us. So if you come in and do manage to get some work experience or volunteer work, then there is definitely the capacity to make your mark and be the person who we need to go to next. So workshop floor, easy. We've got so much work that we can easily slot people into that. Any other areas, it's really hard for us to put people in, and I have been hoping and trying to work with the managers for ages to have some kind of internship system and work experience program and getting people in. I do have somebody coming in next year who does want to do work experience, and he's got work experience with us because he's like a friend of my family, friend of my grandmother and stuff like that. But he said that he wants to do some work in the commercial department. And if that works, then I'm hoping that I've got a platform to say, look, we've got no excuse not to be able to put people into these roles for work experience. I feel like they'd have to be extended periods of time, because it's very hard to get people to get stuck into anything meaningful for a week or 2 weeks, just because of the nature of what we do, because we do travel so often. Chances are, if you come in for 2 weeks, you're not going to be there for one of them. I know it's going to be a complete waste of your time. So we need to be able to put something together that's meaningful and is useful for your time, rather than just saying, oh yeah, sit in a desk and answer the info emails. That's not going to get you. You can't show what you can do if that's what we're asking you to do. I'm very passionate about not taking on work experience and placements and things for the benefit of us. It needs to benefit the person doing it.
And this is a good time to question what you're saying. How does one go about asking for that work experience? Is it just an email?
I actually got somebody work experience today, because so it's an engineering student. He emailed me, or he called me actually on Friday when we were at Girls on Track, and I answered. I was like, "Hello, Jess speaking," and he was like, "Hi, I'm just calling about the ad that I saw on the QUT job board." And I was like, "I can't talk right now. I'm at a Girls on Track event." That's very nice. So he called me. He'd seen the job advertised on the Queensland University of Technology job board for the digital coordinator role. And I thought, finally, I've got somebody applying for this role through QUT, because I haven't had a single application through QUT yet. Oh. And then I said, I can't talk, please email me. So he emailed me and said, I'm actually an engineering student, but I saw this job advertised and I'm massive rev head, really want the opportunity to work for you guys one day. Is there any opportunity to get work experience? And through that, I was like, bloody good on you. Like, you used some initiative. You saw a job that has nothing to do with your skill set and went, there's a contact there. I'm going to get in touch with her. And for sure, like, he knows, he'd have seen my email and gone, holy shit, I can just email Jess, because she's just put her email address out there for anyone to see, because he's a fan. He knows the sport and stuff. And so, yeah, because I thought, well, that was good. Like, he used some initiative, he thought outside the box, and then he's doing 2 weeks work experience on the workshop floor in January.
Wow.
So yeah, thinking outside the box, sending generic emails to like the info@888 email address. That's the easy way. That's the easy way to do it. It's about finding those personal connections, and I feel like I've said this a lot tonight, but finding those personal connections and giving the person a reason to want to help you.
Yeah, and I think one of the easy ways to get that conversation started in an email is, like, if I was doing it with you, I'd be like, oh, I've seen, you're an FIA Girls on Track Ambassador. I love what I've seen on socials. It's really great that you're empowering the younger generation. And then I've got you hooked right away. Because, like, oh, this person's actually gone and read and, I don't know, seen what I do apart from my day job. Or for you, actually, sorry, horses. I'd say horses. Take it back. I don't know. You might get 31 emails about your bosses after this, so that's all right. What makes someone you speak to memorable? Is there anything you'd recommend someone to do when speaking to motorsport professionals?
Ooh, I don't know. Make someone memorable. I don't think there's one thing. I think as we've just touched upon, it's showing that you have done your research and taken the time to understand the person that you're talking to leave a good impression. It can be really hard to be outgoing when you're nervous, but trying to be outgoing. Yeah, that's a hard one to answer because I think it entirely depends on the person. Each person is unique.
I think being genuine. A lot of people can tell genuine versus not genuine. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Like, yeah, being thoughtful and observant and show you've done the background, but without being a kiss ass.
Yeah.
Find balance.
We've got another question from Alicia. Sorry, Jess, do you have a couple more minutes? We've gone over time.
Yeah, of course.
Just wondering, in terms of university and wanting to get into a commercial non-performance role in a supercars team, what would be a degrees that can help with going into the said role? I think it would depend on what the role is.
Yeah, absolutely depends on what the role is. So something like commercial marketing degrees are a good kind of all-round ways to get into commercial, and there's a lot more specialized degrees these days, so you can specifically do like digital marketing and things. I don't necessarily rate one over the other, but certainly if you've got something relevant generally in that area, marketing, that it's journalism, communications, that kind of thing. It's all very loose. A lot of the content crosses over. There's plenty that kind of falls within that area, but would all be considered valuable. Also, a lot of uni now these days is about sticking it out and showing that you're committed to that, showing that you're committed to the to be able to stick out 3 or 4 or 5 years of uni, depending on what you do, and less about the piece of paper that you come out with. Not once have I checked somebody's GPA.
Fair enough. That's good advice, though. So Brooke says, thanks for giving your time to share your experiences and advice. When it comes to employing, if you have someone with similar experiences, how do you narrow it down? What can make someone really stand out? I'm wanting to get into the mechanical side of motorsport. I've completed a mechanical engineering certificate, work experience, volunteered at track and with teams on race weekends, but I want to expand my skills to help me stand out in the future. Wow.
Oh my goodness, so accomplished. Done so much. Don't know where to start. Say the first bit of the question again.
When it comes to employing, if you have someone with similar experiences, how do you narrow it down? What can make someone really stand out?
Yeah. Probably how they interview. Honestly, if I'm giving a hiring manager 4 people who all have very similar skills and very similar CVs, if there's not one CV that particularly jumps above the rest, and they're all 4 candidates are very similar on paper, it comes down to how you interview, honestly. And in motorsport, one of the biggest things for us, if it's a role that's going to be on race team, one of the biggest things is your connection with the person who's interviewing you. The chemistry has to be right. You could have the most perfect person on paper, and if when they meet the hiring manager, the chemistry isn't there, and you know that you're going to have to spend 14 weekends of the year in close proximity with this person, maybe even sharing a hotel room with them, then it's just not going to go. And the problem is you can't work on chemistry. You can't build chemistry. Something for us at Triple Eight, we're a very light-hearted team, although we're very professional, don't get me wrong, but we're very light-hearted. The interviews are generally very they're fun. Like, we like to laugh. We don't like interviews to be serious or intimidating. That's not what we want at all. So if you've got that chemistry and good rapport with the people who are interviewing you, which comes from being outgoing and comfortable in the environment, even if you're shitting bricks, sorry, that's the first time I've sworn, which is very good going for me. Even if you're, having a baby about it, you need to portray that you're comfortable, not confident. I don't want to confuse comfort with confident. Of course, confidence is a good thing, but comfort in the situation is an important thing to portray.
Yeah. All right, last question, because we've gone way over time. What's your opinion on not having the degree and sticking it out, but having volunteer experience in motorsport for 10 years?
Depends on the role. Yeah, it really depends on the role. If you've got motorsport experience already in your back pocket for, did you say 10 years?
10 years.
Yeah, then I think by that time, and you've got examples of your work. So let's use the example of like a sponsorship executive. If you didn't do marketing at university, but you've got 10 years of working in grassroots motorsport and doing a bit of work for some of the circuits or one of the governing bodies or something like that, then I think that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Once you get past a certain point in your career, people aren't going to look back and check whether you have a degree or not. Certainly when we're looking at entry-level positions, so as I've touched upon already, the digital coordinator job, the office assistant, well, less so for the office assistant job, but for the digital coordinator job, somebody who's got a degree in their back pocket in digital marketing, for example, that's a tick on the board. And if they've been working at the same time as being at uni, even bigger tick. But when we're looking at, say we're hiring a new sponsorship executive, yeah, in fact, our sponsorship executive at the moment doesn't have a degree. Yeah. In fact, she has 0 qualifications. Qualified her for the role when she came to us. She's a fabulous example, actually, Cyan. So she actually was a paralegal for 12 years, but she comes from a motorsport family. So she hadn't been working in motorsport. She'd had nothing to do with motorsport. She just loved it and had been volunteering. She was a flaggy at the Australian Grand Prix and I think she was working on, she worked on the stairs at one track, and then eventually she got in touch with me out of the blue because I'd met her years and years ago. Got in touch with me out of the blue and said, I'd really love to get back into motorsport, even if it's just helping with the Girls on Track program. Is there anything that I can do? And I said, look, I'm not going to be at Phillip Island. She said, I'm going to be at Phillip Island. I'm working on the stairs at Phillip Island at the bottom of the corporate suite stairs. Can I meet with you? And I said, look, I'm not going to be at Phillip Island, but we do have this job going. It's not, it doesn't necessarily suit your background, but meet with Tom, our commercial director, and see what he says. So Tom met her and then texted me straight away saying, yeah, no question, she's got the job. She had 0 relevant experience, no degree. She was just, she just made the best impression.
Amazing.
And was like put herself out there. And she suffers from she's very nervous. She's a very nervous, anxious person. And she said meeting with Tom, she was this close to not doing it because she was so scared. She was so nervous. And then she kind of said, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm not going to die from talking to Tom. So she spoke to Tom and then, yeah, she got the job and here she is.
The perfect story, isn't it? Fantastic. And she's a lovely human. I've luckily met her twice, I think now.
She's a pretty good human too.
Yeah. All right. Before we end this, our next big event is our career development and mentoring event at the Australian Grand Prix.
Yay!
So for those dialing in, any advice when they're putting in an application, or maybe they're considering, they're on the fence putting an application in?
Yeah, definitely put an application in. It was such an amazing day last year. Can't recommend it enough. And like even for me, like I was one of the I was one of the ambassadors, but it was still such a fun day to get to see behind the scenes and do all this cool stuff. And honestly, we had one of the girls in Perth said it was the best day ever. Was that in Perth? God, every day is blended into one. So it was the best day ever. So yeah, there's definitely, if you're sitting on the fence, definitely get your application in. If you want to make your application stand out, then we want to know how passionate you are about it. We really want to get a sense of how much you will get out of the day and how you will go about getting maximizing the opportunities that are in front of you.
Yeah, I think it might be really competitive next year. But again, try, there's no harm. And if for any reason, you're not selected because it's only limited to 20 girls, we now run our Pathways events across the country. So you still have the opportunity to meet ambassadors like Jess, Nadine, Molly, and champions. So the whole Girls on Track program is now about accessibility. So don't be disheartened, put in an application. If you ever need anything, email girlsontrack@motorsport.org.au. We're happy to help in any way we can. Reach out to ambassadors, like Jess said. They're available. They're happy to help. They're the biggest support network you can ask for. And we're all rooting for you to get a job in the industry. So on that note, thank you so much, Jess. That was amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody tuning in for this long.
Yeah.
Listening to me rambling. But yeah, I wish I could give everyone a job or get everyone a job. I really, really do. And I really want to be able to help anyone who gets in touch with me and reaches out to me. If you send me a message on Instagram, I'm not great at checking my messages, so I apologize. But yeah, if you want to get in touch with me and you've got something you genuinely want to discuss with me, then if you shoot it to the Girls on Track email, then Priyanka will forward it on to me. And that's happened in several instances. Somebody has showed a genuine interest and expressed a genuine reason to talk to one of the ambassadors, and then become pen pals. Yeah. Or hopefully more than pen pals, like actually end up as colleagues.
Or friends, something.
All of the above.
All of the above. Well, good night, everyone. Thank you again. Thanks, Jess. I will see you in Adelaide or Darwin, somewhere.
Yeah, everywhere. Thanks, everyone. And best of luck with all of your job-seeking endeavours. I really hope to see you all in the paddock in the near future.